September 20th, 1940. 2:17 in the afternoon. Genevieve Grotjan sat at desk 47 in the munitions building basement, staring at 600 pages of encrypted Japanese diplomatic cables spread across 3 folding tables. The room smelled like coffee, cigarette smoke, and desperation. 50 mathematicians had spent 18 months trying to crack Japan's purple cipher. 18 months of pencil calculations, statistical analysis, frequency charts, substitution patterns. Nothing worked. The Japanese diplomatic code remained completely impenetrable. But Grotjan had noticed something nobody else saw. A repetition. Not in the encrypted text itself, but in the intervals between certain character sequences. She'd been tracking it for 6 weeks, documenting every occurrence, measuring every gap. The pattern was so subtle that conventional frequency analysis missed it entirely. But if she was right, if the pattern held across multiple message samples, then Japan's Unbreakable cipher had a structural weakness. A weakness that would let American intelligence read every diplomatic cable Tokyo sent to its embassies worldwide. She rechecked her calculations one final time, then walked to the supervisor's office. She was about to change World War II before it officially started. Like this video if you want to see more untold stories of brilliant women who changed history. Subscribe so you never miss the heroes the world forgot. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We want to know. Our community spans the globe. Now, let me tell you how one woman's pattern recognition gave America access to Japan's most classified diplomatic secrets. The purple cipher machine was Japan's diplomatic crown jewel. Introduced in February 1939, it replaced the older red cipher that American cryptanalysts had partially broken. Purple was different. It used electromechanical stepping switches instead of traditional rotor systems. The encryption method was completely novel, designed specifically to defeat Western cryptanalysis techniques. Japanese engineers believed it was mathematically unbreakable. They weren't being arrogant. They were being realistic. Purple generated encryption patterns that had no relationship to the original plaintext. No frequency analysis could crack it. No substitution cipher techniques worked. The machine produced seemingly random character sequences that followed no detectable pattern. American military intelligence called it the blackout. For 18 months after Purple's introduction, U.S. intelligence lost access to Japanese diplomatic communications. Before Purple, American cryptanalysts could read approximately 40% of Japanese diplomatic traffic. After Purple, that percentage dropped to 0. The strategic implications were catastrophic. Japan was expanding military operations throughout Asia. Japanese diplomats were negotiating with Nazi Germany. Alliance discussions were happening between Tokyo, Berlin, and Rome. American intelligence was blind to all of it. The Army's Signals Intelligence Service assigned their best team to the purple problem. William Friedman, the legendary cryptanalyst who'd broken multiple cipher systems, led the effort. Frank Rowlett headed the Japanese analysis section. Leo Rosen handled the mechanical engineering aspects. And 27-year-old Genevieve Grotjan was the junior statistician responsible for pattern analysis. Grotjan had joined SIS in 1939, recruited directly from university where she'd studied mathematics and statistical theory. She was quiet, methodical, obsessive about detail. While senior cryptanalysts focused on high-level theoretical approaches, Grotjan worked on raw data analysis. She'd review encrypted messages character by character, documenting frequency distributions, measuring interval patterns, tracking statistical anomalies. It was tedious work. Most days produced nothing useful. But Grotjan had patience that bordered on superhuman. She could spend 14 hours analyzing a single encrypted message, searching for patterns that might not exist. By September 1940, the Purple team had made limited progress. They'd determined Purple divided the alphabet into 2 groups, one group of 6 letters, one group of 20 letters. The 6-letter group used simpler encryption. After months of analysis, Rowlett's team had partially broken that portion of the cipher. They could decode approximately 25% of any Purple message, enough to occasionally guess individual words, but nowhere near enough to read complete diplomatic cables. The 20-letter group remained completely impenetrable. That's where Grotjan focused her attention. She'd been analyzing the 20-letter encrypted sequences for 6 weeks, looking for any statistical irregularity. Standard frequency analysis showed nothing useful. Character distribution appeared random. Substitution patterns showed no consistency. But Grotjan noticed something strange. When she compared multiple messages encrypted on the same day, certain character sequences appeared at irregular intervals. Not the characters themselves, but the spacing between specific sequences. She started documenting the intervals. Message 1. Sequence appeared at position 47, then position 72, then position 97. Message 2. Sequence appeared at position 34, then position 59, then position 84. Message 3. Sequence appeared at position 61, then position 86, then position 111. The intervals weren't random. They followed a 25-character cycle. Grotjan had found the pattern. September 20th, 1940. Grotjan walked into Frank Rowlett's office carrying 14 pages of interval calculations. Rowlett was 32 years old, already considered one of America's top cryptanalysts. He'd been working the purple problem for 18 months without a breakthrough. He looked exhausted. Grotjan placed the calculations on his desk. She explained the 25-character cycle. She showed how the pattern repeated across 23 different encrypted messages. She demonstrated that the interval wasn't random, it was structural, built into the encryption machine's stepping mechanism. Rowlett studied the calculations for 6 minutes without speaking. Then he called William Friedman. Friedman arrived within 3 minutes. He reviewed Grotjan's work in silence. The 25-character cycle was the break they'd been searching for. It meant Purple's encryption wasn't truly random. The machine had a mechanical pattern, a predictable stepping sequence that repeated every 25 characters. If they could map that sequence, they could reverse engineer the entire encryption system. Friedman authorized immediate expansion of Grotjan's analysis. Every Purple message in the archive would be re-examined for interval patterns. Every encrypted cable would be analyzed using her 25-character cycle framework. The entire cryptanalysis team shifted focus. Within 48 hours, Grotjan's pattern had been confirmed across 140 different Purple messages. The 25-character cycle was consistent. It appeared in diplomatic cables sent from Tokyo to Washington, Berlin, London, Rome, Bangkok, everywhere Japan maintained diplomatic relations. More importantly, the cycle revealed Purple's internal mechanism. The encryption machine used telephone stepping switches, electromechanical devices that rotated through 25 positions before resetting. Each position generated a different substitution cipher. The switches stepped through their sequence predictably, creating the 25-character cycle Grotjan had discovered. By October 1940, Leo Rosen had built a replica Purple machine based entirely on Grotjan's pattern analysis. The SIS team had never seen an actual Purple device. Japanese embassy security was too tight, but they didn't need to see one. Grotjan's mathematical analysis provided enough information to reconstruct the machine's internal logic. Rosen's replica worked perfectly. When tested against archived Purple messages, it decrypted them flawlessly. American intelligence could now read Japan's highest-level diplomatic communications in real time. The intelligence windfall was immediate and overwhelming. Tokyo sent detailed instructions to Japanese ambassadors worldwide. Military attaches reported on Allied defense preparations. Diplomats discussed alliance negotiations with Nazi Germany. All of it was now readable. U.S. intelligence established a Purple decryption operation that processed approximately 75 Japanese diplomatic cables per day. The decrypted messages were classified as magic, the code word for intelligence derived from Japanese diplomatic communications. Magic provided strategic insight that should have changed everything. By November 1940, decrypted Purple messages showed Japan was preparing for military expansion throughout Southeast Asia. By March 1941, Magic revealed discussions about potential conflict with the United States. By July 1941, intercepted cables detailed Japan's plans to seize oil fields in the Dutch East Indies. By October 1941, Purple decrypts showed Japanese military leaders discussing war timelines with diplomats. American military intelligence was reading Japan's strategic intentions 12 to 18 months before events unfolded. The intelligence was accurate, detailed, actionable. But actionable intelligence means nothing if decision-makers don't act on it. That was the tragic failure of magic. The intelligence reached the right people. Military commanders saw the decrypts. State Department officials read the diplomatic cables. President Franklin Roosevelt received regular magic briefings. Everyone understood Japan was preparing for war. But understanding and acting are different things. Bureaucratic inertia, political considerations, strategic miscalculations, all combined to prevent meaningful action. November 26, 1941. U.S. intelligence intercepted a purple message from Tokyo to the Japanese embassy in Washington. The cable instructed diplomats to destroy all cipher materials and prepare for severed diplomatic relations. Magic analysts recognized the significance immediately. Destroying cipher equipment meant Japan expected imminent conflict. The message was decrypted within 6 hours and distributed to military commanders throughout the Pacific. Admiral Husband Kimmel, commander of the Pacific Fleet at Pearl Harbor, received a warning on November 27th. The warning stated Japanese diplomatic relations were deteriorating rapidly and hostile action was possible. But the warning didn't specify where or when. Japan had military forces positioned throughout Southeast Asia. Possible targets included the Philippines, British Malaya, the Dutch East Indies, Thailand, or any combination thereof. Pearl Harbor wasn't mentioned. It wasn't considered a likely target because military strategists believed Japan wouldn't risk attacking American territory directly. That assumption was catastrophic. On December 2, 1941, Magic intercepted another purple message. Tokyo instructed its Washington embassy to continue negotiations while preparing for diplomatic severance. The message's tone suggested imminent action within days. Military intelligence distributed urgent warnings to all Pacific commands. But again, the warnings were general. Prepare for possible Japanese military action. Increase defensive readiness. Maintain heightened alert status. Nothing specific. Nothing actionable. Admiral Kimmel placed Pearl Harbor on a moderate alert level. He authorized increased reconnaissance patrols, but didn't order the fleet to disperse to sea. Dispersing the fleet would have signaled American awareness of Japanese intentions. It would have compromised magic, revealing that U.S. intelligence could read purple communications. The decision was made to maintain operational security rather than risk exposing the cryptanalysis breakthrough. That decision cost 2,403 American lives. December 7, 1941. 7:48 in the morning Hawaiian time. Japanese aircraft attacked Pearl Harbor. 353 aircraft struck the Pacific Fleet in multiple waves. 8 battleships were damaged or destroyed. 188 aircraft were destroyed on the ground. 2,403 Americans were killed. The attack succeeded because it achieved complete tactical surprise. American commanders weren't prepared because intelligence warnings had been too general. And warnings were general because specific intelligence didn't exist. Magic provided strategic insight into Japan's intentions, but not tactical details about specific operations. Purple was a diplomatic cipher, not a military cipher. Japanese diplomats didn't know Pearl Harbor was the target because military planners didn't tell them. The attack plan was compartmentalized. Only senior naval officers knew the operational details. They communicated using different cipher systems that American cryptanalysts hadn't broken. So Grotjan's breakthrough gave America access to Japan's diplomatic strategy, but not its military tactics. That limitation proved devastating. After Pearl Harbor, magic's value became undeniable. Military commanders who'd ignored general warnings now demanded every scrap of intelligence available. Purple decryption became the foundation of America's Pacific War strategy. Between December 1941 and August 1945, U.S. intelligence decrypted approximately 4,000 purple diplomatic messages. Those messages revealed Japan's alliance negotiations with Germany, Japanese diplomatic assessments of American military capabilities, Tokyo's instructions to diplomats regarding peace negotiations, Internal Japanese government debates about war strategy. Magic didn't prevent Pearl Harbor, but it shaped every major strategic decision afterward. Admiral Chester Nimitz, who replaced Kimmel as Pacific Fleet Commander, received daily magic briefings. General Douglas MacArthur's intelligence staff incorporated purple decrypts into operational planning. The intelligence advantage was overwhelming. American commanders understood Japan's strategic thinking before Japanese military units executed orders. But this intelligence advantage came with a cost. Protecting magic secrecy became a strategic priority equal to using the intelligence itself. Commanders couldn't act on every piece of purple intelligence because doing so would reveal American cryptanalysis capabilities. If Japan discovered purple was compromised, they'd switch to a different cipher system, and the intelligence advantage would disappear. So military planners had to balance using intelligence against protecting its source. Sometimes that meant accepting preventable losses to maintain the larger strategic advantage. The most famous example occurred in April 1943. Magic intercepted a purple message detailing Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto's inspection tour schedule. Yamamoto was Japan's most brilliant naval strategist, the architect of the Pearl Harbor attack. The intercept provided his exact flight route, timing, and aircraft type. It was an opportunity to eliminate Japan's top military commander. But acting on the intelligence risked compromising magic. If American fighters intercepted Yamamoto's aircraft at the precise location and time specified in a diplomatic cable, Japanese intelligence would realize purple was broken. After intense debate, military leadership decided the opportunity was worth the risk. On April 18, 1943, American P-38 fighters intercepted Yamamoto's aircraft over Bougainville and shot it down. Yamamoto was killed. Japan never connected the ambush to purple compromise. They assumed American coast watchers had spotted the aircraft and directed fighters to intercept. The magic secret remained protected. Genevieve Grotjan received no recognition for any of this. Her breakthrough enabled the Yamamoto operation. Her pattern analysis made magic possible. But her contribution remained completely classified. In 1943, she married and became Genevieve Feinstein. She continued working for military intelligence throughout the war, analyzing other Japanese cipher systems, training new cryptanalysts, developing statistical analysis techniques. But her name never appeared in official reports. William Friedman received public credit for breaking purple. Frank Rowlett was recognized as a brilliant cryptanalyst. Leo Rosen's mechanical engineering work was acknowledged. Genevieve Grotjan Feinstein remained invisible. That invisibility was deliberate. The fewer people who knew about purple, the more secure the intelligence remained. Even within military intelligence, access to magic was severely restricted. Cryptanalysts who worked on purple weren't allowed to discuss it with colleagues working on other projects. Security compartmentalization meant Grotjan's colleagues didn't know what she'd accomplished. After the war ended, magic remained classified. The decrypted messages were locked in secure archives. The purple machines were dismantled. Personnel who'd worked on Japanese codes were prohibited from discussing their wartime activities. Grotjan returned to civilian life in 1946. She raised 2 children. She worked part-time as a statistical consultant. She never told her family what she'd done during the war. The secrecy oath was absolute. Her children grew up knowing their mother had worked for military intelligence, but nothing more specific. It wasn't until 1977, 37 years after her breakthrough, that purple was partially declassified. Academic historians gained access to wartime magic files. They began reconstructing the story of Japanese diplomatic code breaking. Grotjan's contribution was finally documented. But by then, she was 64 years old. The recognition came too late to impact her career. She'd spent 3 decades in obscurity while the intelligence community credited others with her achievement. In 2001, the National Security Agency finally gave Grotjan formal recognition. They inducted her into the NSA Hall of Honor, acknowledging her role in breaking purple. The citation read, Genevieve Grotjan Feinstein discovered the critical pattern that enabled U.S. cryptanalysts to solve Japan's purple diplomatic cipher, providing strategic intelligence that shaped American strategy throughout World War II. She was 88 years old. She attended the ceremony with her daughter. Reporters asked how she felt about finally receiving recognition. Her response was characteristically modest. She said the breakthrough wasn't individual genius, it was persistent analysis combined with good fortune. Any competent statistician could have found the pattern if they'd looked at the data long enough. That humility was typical of Grotjan's generation of codebreakers. They viewed their work as technical problem-solving, not heroism. But the impact was undeniably heroic. Magic shaped every major Pacific War decision. Naval commanders used purple intelligence to predict Japanese fleet movements. Diplomats used decrypted cables to understand Tokyo's negotiating positions. Military planners used magic to assess Japan's strategic resources and war production capabilities. The intelligence advantage shortened the war. Historians estimate magic reduced the Pacific War's duration by 12 to 18 months. That translates to hundreds of thousands of lives saved, both American and Japanese. Grotjan's pattern recognition made that possible. One woman, one afternoon, one 25-character cycle hidden in encrypted gibberish. The mathematical elegance of her solution is still taught in cryptanalysis courses today. Finding patterns in seemingly random data requires specific cognitive skills. Pattern recognition, statistical intuition, obsessive attention to detail. Grotjan possessed all three, but she also had something equally important. She had persistence when everyone else had given up. 50 mathematicians had analyzed purple for 18 months without success. Most had concluded the cipher was unbreakable. Grotjan didn't accept that conclusion. She kept looking, kept documenting, kept measuring intervals that seemed meaningless. That persistence was the difference between failure and breakthrough. Modern cryptanalysis still follows the principles Grotjan demonstrated. No cipher is truly unbreakable. Every encryption system has structural weaknesses. Finding those weaknesses requires examining data that appears random until you discover the underlying pattern. Grotjan died in 2006 at age 93. Her obituary in the Washington Post was 3 paragraphs long. It mentioned she'd worked in military intelligence during World War II, but provided no details about purple. Even in death, the secrecy persisted. Today, the National Cryptologic Museum displays a replica purple machine alongside a photograph of Genevieve Grotjan. The display caption explains her breakthrough in technical detail. It acknowledges she found the pattern that 50 other cryptanalysts had missed. It recognizes her contribution as one of the most important cryptanalysis achievements in American intelligence history. But the museum is in Fort Meade, Maryland. Most Americans never visit. Most people never learn about the woman who broke Japan's unbreakable code. That's the tragedy of classified achievement. Grotjan's breakthrough changed history, but she spent her life in silence. She couldn't tell her story while the intelligence remained secret. By the time declassification happened, 37 years had passed. Recognition came decades too late. But we can change that now. We can tell her story. We can make sure the world knows what Genevieve Grotjan accomplished. This wasn't luck. This wasn't accident. This was brilliant mathematical analysis applied to an impossible problem. This was one woman's refusal to accept that purple couldn't be broken. This was pattern recognition that gave America the intelligence advantage that shaped the entire Pacific War. And this was the woman who did it while working in a basement office, earning a junior statistician's salary, receiving zero public recognition for 61 years. If you found this story as powerful as we did, hit that like button right now. Every like pushes this story to people who need to hear about forgotten heroes. Subscribe and turn on notifications. We're bringing classified stories out of the archives every single week. Real people, real brilliance, real contributions that changed history while the world looked elsewhere. Drop a comment and tell us your location. Are you watching from Japan, America, India, Germany, anywhere else? Our community stretches across the globe. You're not just watching, you're preserving history that almost disappeared. Tell us where you're from. Tell us if you knew the story before today. Just let us know you're here. Thank you for watching. And thank you for making sure Genevieve Grotjan Feinstein doesn't fade back into silence. She broke the unbreakable code. She deserves to be remembered. You're making that happen.